We come back to that in Parliament very, very soon on the EED and the RED II. This is top priority, even more so now, to have ambitious and accelerated work. But it's not enough to look at the supply side. That's why we want to complement the work, and we need to reduce gas demand, and we need to start making more savings as soon as possible, not only to increase the injections in storage, and more generally to strengthen our preparedness for the next winter. That's why the European Council asked the Commission to propose an EU contingency plan, and we adopted on 20th of July this new Council regulation and also the plan of demand reduction, which was agreed in rapid time again on the 26th of July and entered into force on the 8th of August. The new regulation is about orderly and coordinated reduction of gas consumption across the EU to prepare for the upcoming winter. If we reduce our gas demand proactively, this allows us to avoid rushed or unilateral decisions when it is too late. It is possible to plan the savings in the most efficient way and minimizing the impact as much as possible on people and business. And if we do it now, the impact on GDP is relatively smaller if we save now. We have proposed a two-stage approach, so preemptive action now and the Union alert. We asked Member States to reduce demand voluntarily by 15% starting from the 1st of August till end of March, which is the gas winter. It's based on calculations we did with NSOG and other institutions, so that the 15% is according to already quite higher than average winter, colder than average winter, what is needed to reduce demand. If the reduction is not enough, and we are monitoring that closely, we expect first reports from Member States in October, and we are in obviously daily contact with the Member States to look at the measures. But if it's not enough, there is the possibility to trigger a Union alert, which is a mandatory obligation for the Member States to meet the 15% gas reduction target. It will be the Member States who are in control over the triggering of an eventual Union alert. That was decided at the Energy Council on the 26th of July. So it's not the Commission, it's a decision and the Union alert can be only triggered or activated by the Council as decided on the 26th of July. It's very difficult to predict the winter. It depends on weather and what are the volumes of alternative gas supplies and so on. But this is an important, very important step. And I think we need to be clear that such a proposal has been adopted in the Council in record time by 27 member states is really, we have never seen that. So there's a solidarity to the reduce 15%. And that corresponds to the 45 BCM of gas needed to be saved, as I said, since beginning of August until the end of March. The Council endorsed the target level, but they have introduced some flexibility for some member states. It's clear that some member states are more hit, those who are closer to Russia, Central and Eastern European countries, or those who have a higher gas share. And that's why there are some exemptions in the rules which were agreed in the Council, for example, for those who are not well interconnected or islands, Portugal, Spain, Ireland, but also others. So that was the flexibility given to the specific situation of the member states. But overall, we are in line of the 15% target, and that achieved. It's based on also guidelines which we adopted in addition to the regulation. So these guidelines help member states and support member states in reaching the 15% of reduction. And we have already started to identify some good practices from member states who have started to implement it, either by measures to cut lights or some other heating proposals in offices. And we see this is a development not only in Spain and some other parts, but negotiations are ongoing also in many of the member states, and we are in close contact with them, and we are sharing those good practice of market-based and non-market-based demand-side measures that can be taken in order to free up gas volumes already today. The Parliament was not formally involved because it's an Article 122, which is the regulation basis. But we, of course, and my Commissioner is fully committed to inform and continue to inform the Parliament. So thank you very much for your attention. I close here, and I'm looking forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you for keeping us individually updated and even that we would like always to have a role for the Parliament, as the Parliament is the result of the direct vote of the citizens. Of course, it was a very emergency situation, and we also see very positively the fact that the Council, the energy ministers, mobilized quick during the summer. Let's see how many member states will really implement the voluntary plan, because it's not clear yet for us. And let's see if the alert mechanism will be triggered at the end of the year. Those who are not started to reduce consumption, how they could fulfill the 15% reduction, because it will be very challenging. But maybe these questions will come also from colleagues. Once again, thank you for presenting the plan, and thank you for keeping us informed and discussing all the details with the ITRE Committee of the European Parliament. I go now to the coordinators round. 2 minutes for each intervention, please. And I start with the EPP coordinator, Mr. Christian Ehler.
Thank you very much, and welcome back after the summer. For the EPP group, the solidarity with countries which are most dependent on Russia remains one of the crucial elements, and you had been referring to solidarity, to quick decisions, but at the same time we should not forget to look forward. I mean, if you look to the investment package, there is not a single transnational energy project. There's not a single to invest in a gas pipeline between the Iberian Peninsula and Western Europe. There's no single transnational attempt to send price signals by investments to the markets. And that's worrisome. That doesn't fit together. These 500 billions are almost wasted for the fight we are fighting right now. And there is no single from the member states, and there is no critical reflection from the Commission so far on how the money has been spent. There's a lot of money not spent yet. There will be a lot of member states not being able to spend all the money. And we really should look forward to investments, transnational investments in hydrogen infrastructure, in hybrid infrastructure, gas and hydrogen, in ports, in supply chains. If we don't send these price signals, the markets will react like they react. They panic, they price in, and we are confronted with a social disaster as a consequence of the crisis, which is unforeseen yet. So, as the Chair had been rightly saying regarding the solidarity agreement, I would like to know if there are any more agreements or just 8 countries covered by the 6 agreements so far, including between Germany and Austria, Estonia and Latvia, Italy and Slovenia. And I think in more general terms, I mean, that is also your perspective. I mean, what we see is that we are lack of deepening of the energy market in Europe. It's still a disaster. I mean, we are coming from the early 2000s, where most of the legislation had been based on environmental law, because we didn't have that in the treaties. But so far, we didn't see any signals of the deepening of the energy market in Europe. And it's individual initiatives between Portugal now doing contracts with the port of Rotterdam to deliver hydrogen, but there is no coherent strategy. And my basic question in terms of investment and what we could do is what you consider to be possible to use the 500 million we spent in the investment plan in terms of deepening the infrastructure, building up the infrastructure, leading from gas infrastructure to then the needed hydrogen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The SND coordinator, Mr. Danica.
Thank you so much, dear Chair. It's nice to see all of you, dear colleagues. Thank you so much, General Director. So, extraordinary times, extraordinary measures. Otherwise, we'll be witnessing the so-called the funeral of the EU economy this winter. Just put it this way. So, my question to you is, are you ready to take some concrete measures in order to prepare this winter, so to be better prepared? Like taxation of the windfall profit of the market operators who have excessive benefits from the emergency situation, and to use these resources to better address the vulnerable consumers and the SMEs. 2. Suspending transactions on the spot market in case of excessive price fluctuation. General Director, the spot market was designed to address 10% of the total market for gas, for instance, and now it's 50%. So why we should accept that 50% on the so-called spot market, which is based on the speculation and total lack of transparency, it is still acceptable? And why do you accept to have long-term contracts based on the prices on this very spot market with no transparency, no full disclosure of who are the shareholders, what are the prices, what is their acquisition prices, and what is the consumer prices? Number 3, why you don't have a commodity exchange for gas, for instance, and why we don't link the gas price with oil, as it used to be? Why? Because the fluctuation of the oil is not so on the excessive limits, and that will calm the prices on the gas? That will be another question. Imposing limits on the reselling commodities, a number of intermediaries. Is it true that on this chain between those making the acquisition of the gas and the consumer, there can be as much as 10 intermediaries, just to be sure that the prices, they increase from, let's say, 100 euros, the price from Norwegian gas, to 3,000 euros? And who is making that money from 100 to 3,000 euros? Number 5. Why? I don't have 3 minutes.
Please, the time is, but please, Mr. Nica, the last question.
The last
please.
one. And introducing a cap based on the profit margin. I think that if you make like 10%, which is the average in the EU economy, it will be also acceptable for the energy companies across the whole chain. And that will be very much welcome by all of us. And thank you so much. Sorry, I thought it's 3 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nica. No, the questions were very interesting, and thank you. On behalf of Renew Group, we have Mr. Grudler. He's remotely and no translation, so please.
Don't worry, I will speak in English. Dear Chair, dear Mrs. Vosdorfer, it's nice to see you again. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. I would like to focus my time on energy prices, which is the biggest internal crisis the EU is facing today. It affects our industry, our growth, and especially our citizens who are worried for their bills. I would like to thank the Commission for the massive work done since the energy market outbreak. But today, the EU needs to act now on the electricity prices. On the short term, we need to develop an energy shield to cap the electricity price. President von der Leyen mentioned this option, and I hope it will be included in your proposal. Will you also propose concrete actions for the longer term? For instance, the decoupling of electricity and gas prices. Also, we need a strong solidarity between member states. While Gazprom has decided to stop supplying gas to ENGIE, for example, Hungary just signed an agreement with them. How to ensure that the EU will act collectively to solve this crisis and get rid of the Russian gas? Will there be actions for the Commission if this solidarity is not respected? Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Grudler. I would like now to invite, on behalf of the Greens, Mr. Bloss.
Thank you very much. Good to see you all again, even though it was a difficult summer, and I think it will be even more difficult fall and winter. I think we not only now have a capacity problem, we really have a price problem. It's impossible for citizens to pay 500 euros, maybe some or even 1,000 euro more per month for energy. So we really have to focus on this, and at the same time, fossil companies make huge profits. So I really support also what Mr. Nika said in terms of windfall profit tax, and I wonder if you are planning something also in this direction also for the European level. Looking to the next Energy Council, I think it is important to understand also that the common purchases platform is not really working, because still member states, companies in Europe are trying to secure gas for themselves and push the prices up. So we need to have some mandatory common purchases for Europe to bring prices down, and to cut the price down, and that's kind of like a buyer's cartel, what is needed, because we see that the prices are so much higher, for instance, than in Asia, that this is basically a bubble. So are you planning something in this direction? Thirdly, as I said, for citizens it's impossible to pay for the energy price for some of them. I think we need something like a basic contingent of cheaper energy for citizens, and everything that is above this basic contingent can be expensive as it is right now, but this has to be ensured that no house will be cold in winter because they cannot afford it anymore. Are you planning something like this? Will you plan to put a moratorium on gas and energy cuts? And lastly, I think it's important that even if you put this rule, I think 177, that you really inform the Parliament, keep us informed regularly, and also in a structured manner. So I wonder how you will do that, because in the last things I only found out via the press. So it's important to keep us involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mrs. Borsdorfer, and welcome back to colleagues. Over the past months, the EU adopted a twofold strategy to deal with the gas shortage, emergency focused on the gas storage regulation and the gas reduction plan. On paper, the strategy seems to be working. According to the most recent data, European gas deposits are 80% full on average, with some member states being even ahead scheduled in the feeding process. In combination with the 15% gas reduction plan, gas deposits are expected to avert a winter supply crisis and still have gas left after the 2023 winter. However, these measures alone, when necessary, will not be sufficient to avoid surging costs for businesses and households, and avert the risk of an economic recession, especially in member states most affected by the lack of gas exported by traditional suppliers. Dramatic bills per household are expected for electricity and gas in 2023, and for SMEs, bills have skyrocketed up to 500% if compared to last year values. Such a scenario means that besides reducing consumption and keeping deposits filled, a new level cap on gas prices is needed, as already requested by some member states, while the EU must support new domestic drilling ventures as well as the building of new infrastructure to ensure the fast replacement of the missing gas that is urgently needed by our industry and consumers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Paolo. On behalf of ECR, Mr. Tobisowski, please.
Panie Przewodniczący, Szanowna Pani Dyrektor, Szanowni Państwo, Dziękuję za Pani wystąpienie. Chciałem zwrócić uwagę na pewną kwestię. 2 lata temu jesienią i zimą Pani komisarz Simpson oraz przedstawiciele DG Energy przy okazji rewizji zapewniali, że rynek gazu ziemnego jest w Unii Europejskiej w zupełności zbudowany, że cała infrastruktura już jest i wystarczy jedynie dokończyć kilka już istniejących realizowanych projektów. Po 2 latach okazuje się, że nie mamy interkonektorów, że w zasadzie nie mamy wspólnego rynku gazu, a poszczególne słabo połączone wyspy. I teraz w obliczu kryzysu energetycznego mamy na gwałt budować interkonektory, terminale i tym podobne przedsięwzięcia. Tymczasem aktualnie mamy do czynienia z kryzysem, który nie tylko jest bezprecedensowy, ale również cały czas się rozwija. Sytuacja jest bardzo dynamiczna, ceny gazu nadal rosną, a przecież jeszcze nawet nie weszliśmy w okres grzewczy. Dlatego chciałem zapytać, jakie działania Komisja Europejska po tej analizie obecnego stanu rekomenduje krajom członkowskim w tym momencie? Chciałem zwrócić uwagę, że dalej rosną ceny ETS-u. Mamy 80 euro już dzisiaj. Czy ten system naprawdę wspiera przedsięwzięcia w tym kryzysie, czy raczej ma wpływ na wzrost cen? Przecież go trzeba zawiesić. To nasza komisja wnioskowała, aby instytucje finansowe zostały wycofane z tego systemu. Dlaczego to się nie dzieje? Czas nie jest naszym przyjaznym wsparciem i okolicznością. Uważam, że priorytetem powinno być umożliwienie poszczególnym krajom Unii Europejskiej kształtowanie miksu energetycznego zgodnie z posiadanymi przez nich zasobami i potencjałami. Skoro wspólny rynek gazu de facto nie działa i nie istnieje, to państwa członkowskie powinny mieć swobodę w wykorzystaniu tych źródeł, tych zasobów, które są dostępne tu i teraz i mogą skutecznie wypełnić lukę po niedoborach gazu, aby zabezpieczyć na zimę swoich obywateli i budować bezpieczeństwo swojego kraju i zarazem budować bezpieczeństwo krajów Unii Europejskiej, ale skutecznie. Byśmy nie gadali, nie dyskutowali, tylko wreszcie podejmowali trafne decyzje po właściwej diagnozie. Dziękuję bardzo.
Last but not least, on behalf of the left, Mrs. Hirarego.
Sí, muchas gracias. Bueno, yo le agradezco mucho las explicaciones que nos ha dado. Hay que reconocer que al menos su propuesta plantea un escenario de ahorro y afronta un hecho material, y es que dependemos del gas y no lo tenemos. Parece que finalmente sí que era posible cambiar el modelo y que incluso se puede plantear una estrategia planificada para reducir la demanda de gas, aunque esta que traen no sea demasiado justa ni equilibrada. Como saben, llevamos tiempo advirtiendo que había que acelerar la transición justa y cambiar el mercado marginalista, sobre todo por los efectos desastrosos del cambio climático. Hemos visto lo que ha sucedido este verano. Y también por la fuerte dependencia de las importaciones de combustibles fósiles. Ahora todo esto, lógicamente, se ve agravado por la guerra. Pero en este punto creemos también que hace falta que la Comisión asuma la responsabilidad que tiene respecto a este modelo energético. Un modelo fallido que ha permitido y alentado que los oligopolios energéticos dirijan un sector que es de vital importancia, pero sin ningún tipo de control, sin criterios de eficiencia y ahorro, y además que está permitiendo que se multipliquen sus beneficios de una manera desproporcionada y obscena a costa de los bolsillos de los ciudadanos y de las ciudadanas en una de las peores crisis que recordamos. Por eso está muy bien, es muy necesario, es imprescindible que planteemos medidas de ahorro, pero creemos que además hay que tener un plan de largo alcance y para eso hay que poner sentido común y prioridades para que sea justo y sostenible. Obviamente, todo esto solo es posible a través del control público con una estrategia planificada en base al interés general y dentro, a ser posible, de los límites del planeta. Para nosotros esta propuesta sigue siendo social y ambientalmente injusta. Por eso aprovecho para preguntarle alguna cuestión. ¿Piensan que es buena idea recuperar combustibles como el carbón después de un verano lleno de incidentes climáticos, ¿hay alguna posibilidad de que la agenda de la Comisión contemple establecer mecanismos que amplíen el control y la titularidad pública del sector energético y algún mecanismo de transparencia para aclarar los costes reales? En la UE, antes de la escalada de precios, había 36 millones de personas que no podían calentar sus hogares. ¿Piensan poner en marcha alguna medida para en este invierno evite que esta cifra no se dispare? Gracias.
Thank you so much. I go now to the Deputy Director General to answer to all these questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your very important and relevant questions. I will try to answer them maybe in blocks. So first of all, we have done indeed a lot. I mean, the whole RePower EU strategy covers a number of areas where we are continuing to work. And as I already said, we have a number of already fast-track measures, the storage filling and now the demand reduction for gas are really key example, historically key examples that we work in solidarity with our EU member states and they are ready to implement them. So I think we have set up also the energy platform. We are working on the joint purchasing. We have set up different regional groups. There was one in Bulgaria. There were one in the northwest Europe. I chaired the one in the southwest Europe, and there are also others in the Central Eastern European countries, which in these regional groups we try to really bundle the demand, look at what is necessary, and then now prepare to do it jointly. So I think this is something we continue and are ready to engage also with the Parliament. And we have done also quite a lot, and that's part of RePower on the savings side, which is important, and on the internal market. So I think we are continuing implementing it. There is a crisis now. I think we are all extremely aware, and the energy prices, both gas and electricity, bills are high we have never seen before. There is speculation, there is uncertainty in the market, and that's why we are looking even more intensively right now what else needs to be done, which we need to present and discuss with you. Just coming first back to some of the questions on interconnectors, we had the discussion on 10E, where we concluded in a long trialogue, like trialogues always are, that we don't finance any more gas pipelines, but that we concentrate on the electricity. With RePower EU and the situation we are now, we identified, however, some bottlenecks where we are looking into it, what's needed to really connect everyone in the new situation where gas flows are not from east to west, but west to east. So we are implementing that, including looking at hydrogen. This is the future, so we are combining it and looking where it's needed, future gas, which need to be hydrogen ready or hydrogen dedicated infrastructure. So that's where we are, and we have 6 solidarity agreements with 8 countries right now, and we are encouraging countries to step that up much more. As I said, and a lot of question about the crisis right now, there is more to come. We have an extraordinary, or the presidency announced an extraordinary council of energy ministers next Friday already. So for that, there is not much we can prepare except some factual updates, and we will listen to our member states what they are doing in gas and electricity prices and what more. In the meantime, as requested by the European Council already, we are looking at price caps and what is possible, and we have some technical seminars and exchanges. So there are different forms of price caps. For example, for import of gas from Russia, there are price caps within the EU. There are the wholesale price caps or the retail price caps, which member states are already applying. So we are looking at all possibilities, full speed. And that is what we want to achieve, also what is the feedback from member states on all these questions. In particular on electricity prices, which we are also looking at short-term measures, emergency measures. How can we avoid these huge bills? How can we protect vulnerable consumers, but not only any more vulnerable consumers, but also middle-income households or industries? We are hearing that as you do even more, what we can do here. So there will be work, or there is work on emergency measures on electricity prices. There might be also something on demand reduction for electricity. We speak today about demand reduction for gas. It's obviously very different. The gas and market and electricity markets are very different. You have gas storage, you have electricity peaks or daily, but no storage. So it's a different type of action which we are looking at. And medium to long term, as it was asked, we are looking at our electricity market design. It had worked well over the last decade. We have marginal pricing. We are looking at option to optimize it, to reform it, but that takes time. I can't, or the President von der Leyen couldn't promise that for tomorrow, but it's for sure that we will do a proper impact assessment, stakeholder consultation involving Parliament full, and look at all options with an open mind, because we are in a very, very different situation now than we were before. So all this is in the making, and I'm sure we are coming back. Repower EU already mentioned that there is a possibility to look at windfall taxes and windfall prices to look at the benefits. This is also in the pipeline, what we are looking at. So I stop here. There's a lot of work ongoing, and I'm sure we are also coming back.
Yes, indeed. We have the second round now. As always, shorter interventions, 1 minute, please, colleagues. And I start the round with the intervention of President Buzek, EPP.
Thank you very much, colleague. Thank you, Madam Director General, for your information. We should cooperate in excellent way, both our institutions. So my first question is about that, because while working on the storage regulation, the European Parliament was pushing for some saving measures, and Council and Commission said it is not necessary, it is not needed at all. So we were rather surprised. Both institutions just few weeks later agreed exactly on such measures. And I would like to ask you if this regulation on gas reduction is to be extended for another year, it will be done through the ordinary legislative procedure or in the same way. We would like to be as close as possible in the future. A second question, very short. 15%, where does this percentage come from? A few days ago, we heard that member states already achieved the target of 80% in gas storage. Congratulations, fantastic. European Parliament expected 90%. We're fighting for that. It's another case. So isn't this 15% target also too conservative, maybe? Thank you.
Thank you, President. Mr. González Casares, SND.
Gracias, presidente. Gracias, señor Augustdorfer, por la presentación.
Rusia está
utilizando el suministro de energía para doblegar a Europa. Algunos en esta casa, en mi grupo, llevamos advirtiéndolo desde hace un año. La Comisión no quiso verlo, prefirió arrastrar los pies. Y ahora nos encontramos en esta situación. Y esto exige respuestas a la altura del desafío, medidas extraordinarias que rompan con viejos dogmas. La decisión final adoptada en julio para coordinar la reducción del uso del gas me parece acertada. Pero me quería preguntarle si tiene la Comisión alguna estimación del porcentaje de ahorro alcanzado por los Estados miembros en esto. Y vamos sobre el diseño del mercado eléctrico. La verdad es que venimos mucho tiempo reclamando. Hicimos propuestas desde mi grupo para desacoplar los precios del gas de la electricidad, permitiendo que los ciudadanos se beneficien de los precios más bajos que ofrecen las energías renovables y actuando sobre los beneficios extraordinarios. Ahora nos dice que van a tener en cuenta el Parlamento para la reforma estructural que venga posteriormente. Quería saber si van a tener en cuenta el Parlamento para la reforma de emergencia y qué tiempos manejan para esta intervención. Y algo también que quería saber es si ha cambiado su posición en contra de la reforma, absolutamente en contra, que nos ha mantenido durante meses una posición estática mientras sucedía lo que sucedía. ¿Qué papel bajó?
Thank you so much. Mr. Peterson, the Vice Chair of the Committee, Renew.
Thanks so much, Christian, and thanks so much, Mrs. Wörsdorfer, for you being with us today. I think we all realize how serious a situation we're in, and I think we all acknowledge and praise the hard work done by you and your colleagues in the Commission. Now, just a reflection on the point made by our colleague Ila previously on the need for deepening the markets and cross-border issues. I think it's an extremely important point to make, and we'll have to follow up on this. Now, on the winter preparedness, I think it's extremely important that we provide incentives for member states to actually make savings, because if we end up in a situation where we only subsidize further consumption, we will not get where we want to get to ensure full independency from Russia. And just a reminder to this House and this committee and ourselves, we have important files on the table this fall on Efficiency Directive and on Buildings Directive that we have to ensure high ambitions on these files in order to ensure, namely, the independency from Russia. So we also have our own responsibility in this. On the electricity market issues, I'd like to push you a little, Mechtil, on timeline on this, because obviously this is of critical importance. So you're referring to an impact assessment. I guess the outcome of this depends on what you're assessing. So I'd be curious to have a little further information on this. I find it important, just to mention the stability issues. I mean, we have investors out there wanting to spend billions on projects. They need stability, so that has to be factored in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Morten. Mrs. Carvalho, Vice Coordinator of EPP.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Director General. Thank you for your intervention. However, I was a bit disappointed with your intervention. We live, as you said, in times of crisis, and we need important emergency and also structural reforms. And I had a lot of hope with the words of President von der Leyen in the beginning of this week. So I was expecting that you give us more, at least the line that you, because the President has said you are working, Commissioner is already working, so the main lines that you are working, how Parliament is going to be involved, and the timetable, because some of the measures need to be urgent. So if you could share these details with us, I would appreciate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Mrs. Paulus, the Greens.
Sorry, I have to search for the button. Thank you, Morten, for your words. I couldn't agree more. On prices, I think capping prices in wholesale or retail markets will just lead to taxpayers' money being funneled into fossil gas producers' already bulging pockets, as price is simply inelastic in a time of limited supply. And right now we're more or less keeping the prices up in competition with Asia, where the markets are reacting to what Europe is doing, of course. I would like to know which options does the Commission mull over concerning the reform of the electricity market, because I do agree that marginal pricing is not a suitable market design in a system which is dominated by renewables, because prices will become negative in times of high supply, and hydrogen plants covering the residual load in times of low supply will presumably only run less than 1,000 hours a year. So they would need extremely high prices to cover their fixed costs, and I don't think that this is sustainable. But I would caution against going back to a regulated system, because this would disincentivize investment in renewables and storage and might even hamper the transition, as you can observe in Texas right now, where a new gas plant is built instead of expanding the grid.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Mr. Geyer, SND.
Danke, Herr Präsident. Den drängenden Fragen der Kolleginnen und Kollegen hinsichtlich der Vorbereitung der Kommission auf den Energiegipfel schließe mich natürlich an, Frau Görsdorfer. Also ich kann vollständig verstehen, dass Sie nicht komplett die Pläne auf den Tisch legen können. Das müssen Sie Ihrer Präsidentin natürlich vorbehalten. Aber uns ein bisschen eine Idee geben, in welche Richtung Sie denken. Das würden wir uns, glaube ich, schon alle
wünschen. Ich will den vielen Argumenten der Kolleginnen und Kollegen nur eins hinzufügen. Also wir sind ja nicht gegen Krieg. Und das ist glücklicherweise so. An diesem Tag, dem 1. September, an dem der Zweite Weltkrieg ausgebrochen ist und um diese Uhrzeit Nazi-Deutschland Polen schon überfallen hatte. Und vielleicht daran erinnern, dass es gut ist, dass es so ist, dass wir mittlerweile hier friedlich zusammensitzen und gemeinsam an Lösungen arbeiten. Aber unsere Wirtschaft ist getroffen von Kriegsfolgen. Und ich glaube, in einer solchen Situation muss man anfangen, darüber nachzudenken, wie man außerhalb der Reihe auf diese Maßnahmen reagiert. Ich halte das für angemessen. Ich fand die Aussagen von Frau von der Leyen mutig, aber noch ein bisschen lustig. Wenn ich darf, noch eine zweite Frage. Ich glaube, dass wir durch diesen Winter insofern kommen werden, als das, wenigstens ist das, was ich von deutschen Gasimporteuren höre, dass bei uns keine Lichter ausgehen werden. Der Preis ist natürlich eine andere Frage, aber letzter Punkt, welche Vorbereitungen treffen wir für den Winter 23/24.
Thank you so much. Mr. Ross from ID.
ECR. I have another slot. Thank you, Chair. I will speak in Dutch. Ik wil de collega's hier die volledig hebben ingezet op het investeren in onbetrouwbare zon- en windenergie en het afbouwen van betrouwbare energiebronnen zoals fossiele en kernenergie erop wijzen dat de torenhoge energieprijzen een gevolg zijn van jullie keuzes. De commissie blijft ook de waarde van kernenergie negeren. De conceptversie van bespaar gas voor een veilige winter, die vooraf was uitgelekt, bevat een aanbeveling om geplande uitfasering van kernenergie uit te stellen om energievoorziening te stimuleren. Verder adviseert het ontwerp ook waar mogelijk over te stappen op kernenergie om gasverbruik te verminderen. Logisch. Vraag 1. Waarom heeft de commissie weer toegegeven aan de ideologische druk van een minderheid en heeft zij deze aanbeveling in de definitieve versie toch verwijderd? Het is tijd dat de Europese Commissie haar verantwoordelijkheid tegenover de burgers neemt en haar ideologische oppositie tegen kernenergie staart. Dan solidariteit. Solidariteit speelt een sleutelrol in de Europese energiegemeenschap. Het is de essentie van bespaar gas voor een veilige winterverordening, maar wat betekent dat? Als Duitsland... Let me finish my question, please. Als Duitsland wellicht toch het onverstandige besluit neemt om ook de laatste 3 kernreactoren te sluiten, dan kan en wil ik daar niet uitleggen waarom Nederlanders uit solidariteit nog meer voor hun eigen energie moeten gaan betalen. Dank u wel.
Thank you, Mrs. Klotz, please.
Szanowni Państwo, zapaść na rynku energetycznym jest problemem przede wszystkim finansowym, a my mamy narzędzia, aby nie pogłębiać tego kryzysu. Należy więc natychmiast zamrozić ceny ETS-u, aby ratować producentów energii i cały przemysł. Tymczasem Komisja Europejska woli jednak chyba zamrozić obywateli, niż przyznać się do błędu i cokolwiek zmienić. Przykro to mówić, ale największym problemem Europy, ja to tak widzę w obliczu kryzysu energetycznego, jest arogancja jej przywódców. W Parlamencie, w Komisji Europejskiej nie ma politycznej woli, aby dokonać skutecznej korekty ewidentnie błędnej polityki energetycznej, szczególnie na ten czas kryzysu, jaki mamy, wojny na Ukrainie. Jesteśmy jak Titanic, który płynie pełną parą w otchłań katastrofy. Różnica jest tylko taka, że kapitan Titanica nie wiedział, co go czeka. Natomiast wy doskonale wiecie, co jest przed nami, ale w imię fałszywie pojętych ambicji klimatycznych nie chcecie korygować kursu ani o metr. Czeka nas bardzo bolesne zderzenie z rzeczywistością. Ostatnie zdanie, za które słono zapłacą setki milionów Europejczyków. Dlatego pytam, czy trzeba aż cywilizacyjnej katastrofy, aby otrzeźwieli, opamiętali się unijni przywódcy?
Last on my list, Mrs. Pernilla, ICPP.
Thank you so much. I have one short question on energy efficiency and one on nuclear. On energy efficiency, is the Commission considering measures to boost behavioral changes in Europe for all citizens, even more than already touched upon and initiated, that could be support tools for member states, but also EU-wide campaigns so that also the European institutions are reaching out to SMEs and families and helping them to do what they really want to do? On nuclear, we are currently see how the use of coal is rising significantly, and we see how price caps in some countries result in increasing economic support for highly emitting power plants. At the same time, we see an extreme shortage of nuclear energy from France. What opportunities do we have in Europe to increase the energy from nuclear on a short-term basis? Thank you so much. Yes, I did it.
Thank you so much, Pernille. Thank you for being extremely on time. I have 4 requests for Catch the Eye, but I said at the beginning that it will be very challenging. We still have some time. If you can do it in 30 seconds, just one question, then, but please, it is a little bit. So Mrs. Spiraki, Mr. Kelly, Patricia Toia, Mrs. Toia, and Mr. Kaf. Mrs. Kutajar. 30 seconds, Mrs. Spiraki first. One question.
Thank you very much, Chair. Dear Madam Director General, I would like to elaborate further to Mr. Morten Patterson's question on the issue of the pricing model, because we are focusing the danger of political fragmentation and instability in our countries due to the populists. So I would like to ask you, how fast do you go on the issue of the impact assessment? What kind of assessment will take place? And how fast you will implement the new model?
Thank you. Patricia Toia, prego.
Una sola domanda molto breve, prendo tutte le cose che ha detto Nica, why, e chiedo appunto why non guardate bene nella poca trasparenza, alias speculazione di tutto quello che concerne la formazione dei prezzi. Lei stessa ha detto c'è poca trasparenza. Da mesi abbiamo chiesto anche con interrogazioni che la Commissione, non è solo vostra competenza, riguarda altri commissari, intervenga, però non abbiamo avuto soluzioni, solo affermazioni. Se c'è poca trasparenza e quella poca trasparenza sta facendo saltare il sistema industriale oltre che la vita delle famiglie, abbiamo il dovere, avete il dovere di alzare la coperta e guardare cosa c'è dentro.
Grazie molto, Mr. Kelly, please.
Much appreciated, Mr. Chairman. Compliments to the Commission on their efforts to try and alleviate the situation which we find ourselves in. But I just want to ask one question. In my country, we are heavily dependent on gas, but the policy is it's great to use the gas once it doesn't come from Ireland. And are the Commission aware of the fact that we have a policy of keep it in the ground, that we have vast reserves of gas off the west coast, off the Corrib and Barryroe, but because of this policy introduced a number of years ago, we are not utilising it, and this I think is unfair to the European Union, who are doing everything they can to source gas from around the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sean. Josiane, please.
Thank you. I would like to elaborate a bit on about the industrial side of things and the effects of possible cuts of energy consumption on the price of basic goods. We know that the unbearable energy costs that have been spiraling in the past months are leading to many undertakings either going bankrupt or having a difficult situation or increasing their prices, and at the end of the day there's a domino effect with skyrocketing prices for basic goods. This is about protecting jobs but also consumer prices, affordable consumer prices, and that's why I'd like to ask if the Commission is ready to face this possible domino effect and which are the concrete actions it envisages to undertake in order to protect enterprises' income statement but also the purchasing power of European consumers. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The very last, Mr. Kiran Kaf. Kiran.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. In a crisis, we must act decisively. And good work has been done under the Repower EU initiative. But we must not delay, we must speed up the clean energy transition. And Morten is right, we need increased ambition on the EPBD. But energy poverty is real and will get worse this winter. So is it not time for an energy crisis fund at EU level to tackle the cost of living and the climate crises, funded from a windfall tax from oil and gas company profits? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. Deputy Director General, really challenging a lot of questions, but the situation is very, very challenging also.
Thank you very much, and I'm sure we will have ample occasions to go deeper, and the President von der Leyen will give the 14th of September the State of the Union, and I can assure you there will be a lot on energy, and we will follow up, or we are already preparing and follow up that very, very intensively, and you're very much right. The situation we are right now, both on the gas prices but also electricity price security of supply concern, is of of the highest concern and priority in the Commission. So we are coming back to many of those questions, but I will try, obviously, to cover what I can right now. So thank you very much, Mr. Buzek, on all your input and leading on the gas storage and what we can do. The regulation which we proposed on the 20th of July, we had proposed 2 years. The Council decided on 1 year. We have to see what's happening in 1 year, but what more can we do when we maybe are a bit out of the crisis, even though I agree to what was said. It's not this winter, it's the coming winters where we need to cover the situation. But we will involve the Parliament extremely closely, and the question of 15% demand reduction, if it's too conservative, if we have now an EU average of storage of 80%, it's reassuring for this winter, but we can face a cold winter, and we need to continue and have the filling of gas storage in March at a certain percentage, I think it's 40%, to be able for the winter 23-24. So this is a continuous exercise where we need to look at, and that's why we have a voluntary demand reduction target of 15%, but if needed, we go to the mandatory. And that's why the continuous efforts for the winters to come is needed. Very rightly so, a number of you mentioned repower and the need to keep the ambitious of EPPD, EED and RED II, and we are very, very ready to engage with you. The trilogues are coming up under Czech presidency, and we will keep that in mind. It's a top priority as well to have the highest possible ambition there. As you know, Repower in May added proposals, legal proposals on permitting, raised the 45% renewables target, and we are keeping a close eye also on EPBD, what's needed, and energy efficiency savings. So I can only underline the importance of that as well. Also, the same for infrastructure and cross-border. It was mentioned. A few days ago, we inaugurated a connection Poland-Slovakia, and in the end of September, there will be the Baltic interconnector from Poland to the Baltics country. So we are paying off what we worked on for the last 10 years with the PCIs and CEF funding. There are more and more interconnection in the gas market and electricity market, LNG terminals and so on. But with the crisis, obviously, we need to look at bottlenecks and what needs to be further strengthened. But just to underline that a couple of these projects, which takes years and years to be, are ready right now in time for the winter, as the Baltic interconnector, as an example of all that. Coming back to the issue of prices, and as I said, Mrs. von der Leyen, our president, will outline that in more detail on the 14th of September, so in 2 weeks. We are working on emergency measures. We are well aware that the prices, as I said also before, are affecting vulnerable consumers, so we need to help them. Member states are already doing quite a lot, and we encourage them to do more. But there is not anymore, as I said, the issue of vulnerable but also middle-income household and industry. So we are looking, our current security of supply regulation covers protected customers. So we have something in place, what need to be done. We are looking at the issue of critical industry, which is not covered in the current security of supply regulation, and they're coming to see you and us. So we are looking, and member states are preparing energy-intensive industry. We met aluminium, fertilizers, and many more who are extremely struggling with the high energy prices, in addition to the vulnerable and other consumers. So we are looking in what is needed also for those critical consumers, which, as our security of supply regulation is not apt for a crisis we are in right now, so we need to look what we can amend, what we can add, and we are right now doing that as well. I don't come back on the issue of price caps because that is something we are looking at. The European Council asked us, so we are offering options. We will listening first to the Extraordinary Energy Council on the 7th of September, but then we will also come up also after the speech of Ms. von der Leyen and discussions with the European Parliament on what are the concrete options also for the reform of the market design, which the marginal prices. We know we are working, as I said, on more deployment of renewables. We need to integrate them and we need to reform our market design. We are well aware of that, but just to underline, it can't be overnight, but we are looking at all the options, even wider than we had maybe done when we started, looking at what we can do to avoid what the situation we are in. It's partly speculation, but it's also partly demand and supply. And we are working, as I said, on the supply side, and it's not only on third countries. We are looking, and REPowerEU mentioned domestic production. So this is also up then to the member states to look at domestic production, but also then imports from third country. When it comes to the energy mix and nuclear, this is something member states are looking at. We know this summer, and that has also aggravated the crisis we are in, there were a couple of factors which really made it even worse. So the nuclear situation in France, where half of the capacity is for different reasons in maintenance, there are coercion issues and others which France is tackling right now. There's the very dry summer, which has put a lot of problems on hydropower, certainly in Portugal and Spain and France and other parts of Europe. And that is, in the situation we are already quite in, adding to the problems and the price situation we are. So we have to work on all that. Short-term temporary solutions member states are taking is looking at coal and other means, but we are committed medium and long term, and as you know, on, as I said before, on the European Green Deal, Fit for 55, and all the proposal we need to continue. I think I stop here. There were many more questions, I'm sure. Yes, there was one, and that was the last question. We are launching a campaign in September together with our press department or DG Communication on energy savings. I think we did already, together with the International Energy Agency, some 10 points plan to save gas and oil. We will continue that or upgrade that. Member states are already doing some. So we are collecting best practice. We can only encourage to do that. We will use social media and all that. And if you are very well placed to highlight that, I think it is a needed step in addition to all the other steps we need to take so we can achieve also issues, savings from behavioral and other measures. I stop here. I'm sure we will come back, and I would like to thank you all for all the interesting questions.
Thank you so much indeed, Madam Deputy Director General Versdorfer. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for answering to most of the questions and also giving us very important and relevant information. Of course, we'll all follow the initiative of European Commission. We'll look closely to the decisions of the Extraordinary Energy Ministers' Council of the next Friday, and we'll stay in close contact with our Commissioner and with DGNR. And once again, thank you for the very good dialogue and cooperation. And please understand the urgency and the need to maybe change a little bit some paradigms and see what are the solutions in order to help European citizens and industries. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dear colleagues, because many of you just joined the meeting, I would like once again to wish you a lot of success in your work.